and welcome to our State of Affairs portion of the program with our regular panelists, Dr. Themba Kadalie and Charles Achaye-Odong, and our special guest this evening, Mrs. Renee Abul-Ella. Welcome to the Collegium.
Thank you.
We would like to begin the informational flow by asking you to tell us a little bit about your background.
Well, I was born in Haifa, Palestine, and I was a little child when we had to leave. We were deported in 1948 when they established the State of Israel. First, my parents, with us 3 small children, and my mother was pregnant, went to Lebanon and then to Baghdad, where my father was working there, and I went to school in Baghdad, Iraq. And then in 1960, we had to leave again, also leave everything behind and leave after the revolution against the king. And so my parents and sister's brother went to Lebanon, and I went to Cairo because I wanted to study there. And I went to the university, to the Cairo University, where I was studying journalism. And then my father died, and I came back before I finished my study. I worked to be able to support my sisters and brother, and then when they were a little bit older, I went back to the university. I finished my studies, and I was working there as a foreign correspondent for Radio Lebanon in Cairo, and got married also there, and then came back with my husband to Lebanon, and our 2 sons were born there, and I was working all that time also in Radio Lebanon. And then I started also with the Palestinian Revolution at that early stage in the information sector, and receiving journalists and speaking with them, and working on the information sector. And then I also worked with the Palestinian women, and was one of the women who established the part of the Palestinian Women Union in Lebanon. And then 1976, we had to leave Lebanon again, this time with my husband and the 2 small children because of the war there, and we came to Berlin. And since then, here.
I know you've been following closely events in the Middle East and Palestine in particular. Mm-hmm. Could you tell us the history of Palestine, and what do you see as its future?
Oh, the history is very long. I think we only say that until 48, Palestine was our homeland, our country, our home. And since then, everybody who was living in Palestine then and had to leave in 48 became a refugee, and all our children and their children. And our hope was always to go back to Palestine, and our hope now is to have even a part of Palestine to have a home for us. And I hope we worked for that all these years, and we spent our lives working for it. So I hope one day it will be real.
Thank you.
Can you tell us something about the so-called Balfour Declaration, and what does the declaration mean for the people living in the Middle East and for the whole world?
Now it is 80 years after the Balfour Declaration, but when you speak about today, you always go back, to the beginning. It was the beginning of the modern problem in Palestine, and the Foreign Affairs Minister of England gave himself the right to promise people a land which he didn't own. So Palestine was not British, and he just promised the Zionists that they will get Palestine if England will get the mandate over Palestine after the First World War, and that was in 1917, in November 1917, this declaration. So you can imagine the impact of it in the Middle East, because it was the beginning of everything which we are living in today.
Okay.
Could you tell us, what is the historic relationship between Arabic and Jewish people?
Historically, actually, in our language, in the Arabic language, when we speak and we speak about the Jews, we say our cousins, because we are cousins historically. And the problems are European, and Europe exported its problem with the Jews to us. And even we say solved its problem with the Jews and made us pay the costs for it. So historically, I don't see any problems, and that's why we are sure that in the future too, it will be possible to have peace and live together.
You went to Iraq at an early age, began your education there. Please tell us what is the pre-Saddam Hussein era, and what is your analysis of present-day Iraq, and what prognosis do you give for the future? I know it's a big question, but
It is, yeah.
can you say it briefly?
Because the time I spent in Iraq, it was much longer before Saddam, and I was also a child and a teenager going to school. So it was a nice time for me. I had a lot of friends there, and so I can't, compare with the political situation. And that's why I think the way the West at the moment, especially the United States, is doing with the Arabs, we have to question that before questioning the reactions and before questioning what's happening there. And that's why I think that the people in Iraq are paying a very, very high price for something they didn't deserve. And I think there are many other ways politically to solve problems. And if you look all around the world, the problems are not dealt with on the same level. It depends on the interests of the United States government, how they deal with the problems. So I look for the problems more in Washington than somewhere else, if Baghdad or somewhere else.
Could you give us a short overview about the history of Lebanon, and what are the causes for recent conflicts in the past of that region?
I think very, very short and simple. The situation in Lebanon. Lebanon is a very small country. It is 10,500 cubic, how you say it? Square kilometer. And in such a small country, there was a lot of differences, economically and socially. And they didn't achieve somehow of equivalent in the development of the country since the independence in the 40s. And that's why the civil war, which started in 1975 in Lebanon, is a social economical war which took the religion as an instrument. And when you take religion as an instrument, then it becomes very dangerous, especially in our part of the world where the people believe they are believers. They don't need to be extremists, but they are believers, and not every believer is an extremist. But when you are a believer, then it is dangerous to make the religion an instrument. And this is what happened in Lebanon, and I think the Lebanese learned a lot, and I hope that for the future they will have learned, because a lot of blood was shed. So it will be different in the future. At the time being, we hear that they are building Lebanon again, and I hope that they will be building the whole of Lebanon and developing the whole of Lebanon and building an entity so that they will believe in it and it will be too precious to destroy again.
Thank you.
What are the historical impacts of President Nasser and subsequently President Anwar Sadat?
Nasser came at a moment where the Arabs had their independence, a few years ago in the 40s after the Second World War, each Arab country after each other. And before that, they had over 400 years of Ottoman occupation and then the mandate of the British and the French. So, and the world was developing, the Industrial Revolution in the world was far away, and they found themselves, they have a glorious history, but Middle Ages, Black Ages after that, and now the world is developed and they are staying there, and they had a lot of hope and wanted to do something. And Nasser came. He was the personification of all these hopes, and not only for him, but also not only for the Arabs, but also for the others in Africa and Asia.
Good. I think we have to hold it here for one moment. We need to go to break. So stay with us, and remember, you are participating in the Collegium. We'll be right back.
Alda ist wie eine Familie. Wenn man weit weg von seiner Familie ist, kommt man hierher und kann über seine Sorgen sprechen. Ich bin heute zur Polizei gegangen. Ich bin alleine gegangen. Eine deutsche Frau, die mit mir auf der Rolltreppe fuhr, habe ich nach dem Weg gefragt. Ich zeigte ihr den Zettel mit der Anschrift und sie hat mich bis zum Bus gebracht.
Ich habe die Idee von Aldar initiiert, den Antrag gestellt, und seit der Gründung mache ich hauptsächlich die soziale und rechtliche Beratung.
In meiner Freizeit am Wochenende besuche ich Freundinnen oder Freundinnen besuchen mich, oder gehe ich mit den Kindern zum Kino oder zum Sport oder zum Altar, Kaffee trinken und hören, was alles Neues von der arabischen Welt gibt.
Ich gehe raus, um einzukaufen bei Aldi oder Penny hier. Und einmal wöchentlich gehe ich zum Markt, um Gemüse zu kaufen. Der Weg ist weit. Ich fahre 1 Stunde hin und 1 Stunde zurück. Ab und zu gehe ich zu einer Freundin. Wenn sie ein Kind bekommen hat oder sich nicht wohlfühlt, gehe ich sie besuchen. Und wenn es Probleme in der Schule gibt, dann gehe ich dorthin, um mich zu erkundigen, was los ist. Ich gehe also nur raus, wenn es einen Grund dafür gibt.
أصغر واحدة بالولاد على الزنطة شولي كان قبلها 2 هلا ومش عارفة شو بدي أعمل. يعني رحت أنا على اليوم انطعمت 2 3 ورحت على المدرسة، فهلا بعتيني عشان أصغر واحدة بالمدرسة ريما.
أنا رأيي إنه إذا أنت كنتي صرتي رايحة كل محل لازم يكون في حكيم نفسي بريت المدرسة هو اللي يفحص الأولاد ويقول إذا كان لازم لهم ولا لا. وبس تجيبي الفحص تبعه بتجيبي لنا اياه وبنشوف ساعتنا ايش فينا نعمل وكيف فينا نساعد.
يعني بقدر اتحداهم بهذا التقرير، اذا ما فيني يودوهن خلاص بنتهي كل شيء. طيب ماشي الحال.
And welcome back to the Collegium. You were telling us about President Nasser and President Sadat. Please continue.
So at that moment, Nasser was the symbol of all these hopes, as I said, not only for the Arabs, but also for the Africans and Asians. And when they created this movement, not with the US and not with the Soviet Union, but to be independent in the middle and things like that. So everybody was hoping, was looking forward, was working, and even the art, you know, which was produced at that time, also was showing this hope, and everybody was looking forward. In 1967, it was a very bad moment, and I say always that all of us, all the Arabs, we didn't recover yet from the shock of 67. And we are still having some kind of mass depression. The world was dancing and we were crying. And that's why after that, you know, that was, and then 4 years after that, Nasser died. The step which Sadat took, the problem was the way he did it and the moment he did it. It was presented as if the others were against peace, but everybody else was against, who was against this movement of Sadat, was against it because the way he did it and the moment he did it gave everything without getting anything for the Arabs. Maybe he got the Sinai back, but Sinai for Israel was not that important strategically. And if Israel could put Egypt aside, and this is the biggest Arabic country and power, so it would give Sinai back. And so this movement of him divided the powers of the Arabs, and so Israel could then dictate the way it wanted, and that's why the reaction to his movement was not very acceptable, or even everybody was against it in the Arab world. So, and now we are living in the moment where we hoped again we will have peace, and but we are seeing that this hope is being destroyed every moment from the way the Israeli government under Netanyahu is acting. And they speak of peace and land, and now they are speaking peace and security. I mean, who needs security? We need the security. Israel is stronger. Israel has all the security from the United States and other big powerful countries of the time being. We don't have this security. We were deprived from our homes, we were thrown away, and we don't have any homeland, we don't have any home. So if we speak about security, we need the security. And then the word security at the time being, they speak of security, and then when you have some acts of people who are desperate and even kill themselves with the others, they say they don't have security. These acts, you could stop them if you give the people peace, if you give the people future, if you give the people perspectives for the future. You won't have these acts. So security should have been something between countries, and we are not even a state. So how can Israel want security from us if we don't even have the independence? They ask us for something which they themselves couldn't do. They couldn't save their own minister-president, who was killed also in such an act from a Jew. So this is the situation today. And this is also a way from Nasser until today. You know, it was going on step by step.
Yeah, talking about present-day politics in particular, and individuals who are playing a remarkable role. I come to this lady, Hannah Ashrawi.
Hanan Ashrawi.
Yeah. What is her role in politics in particular, and is she not really a powerful role model in the Middle East and also for Arab women?
I think that her role is more important for the public opinion outside, you know, in the United States, in Europe, because she is representing some different role and picture of the woman, and not the way the people and the media was putting to the Arab woman. Because in Palestine itself and in the other Arabic countries, we have a lot of educated and women who can really, who are ministers and who are playing big roles. So the special role of Hanan Ashrawi came in the moment where they were negotiating, and she could convince the American public opinion better than any other one.
Thank you.
Themba.
What has been and is the relationship of the people of Palestine and Yasser Arafat?
He is a symbol. He is a very important and big symbol, and he showed in all these years since '65, because since the revolution started in '65, that he is the person who can really get the people move together and go to somewhere. And every time when during these years were said, oh, the Palestinians are finished, the PLO is finished, and it happened many times after 1970 in Jordan, after '82 in Lebanon, and after the Saddam Hussein war with Kuwait and things like that. But every time we see that the Palestinians are not finished, and Yasser Arafat is still the leader, and now everybody is welcoming him as a president. A few years ago, the United Nations had to move its assembly to Geneva because the United States didn't give him a visa to enter. And now he is the president. So he is a symbol, and also when he works for the peace, and we believe in this path which he is taking, and I think he is the one who is able to go on this road.
There's been a recent convening of the heads of Muslim countries in Iran, and also in the news lately the relationship between Turkey and the EU. What is your response to these developments?
Sometimes I am irritated when, again, the religion plays really a role when between the relationships between the European Union and Turkey and the Arab world and other countries. And I think we need to speak more open together and know how it is going to develop, and not let a few people who are really very not for the peace to take a more important role than they are actually supposed to.
Charles? Well, I've just been informed I think we've run out of time. So stay with us, and we will now proceed to our arts calendar. Thank you.
Sit right here. Let's rap a while. You see, I'm kind of lonely too, you know. And loneliness is a very bad thing if you let it get the best of you. And loneliness can get you down, you know. Yeah. Are you comfortable now? Yeah. That's how I say it. Yeah, as I was saying before, loneliness can get you down. And I have heard of loneliness blowing some good people's mind, you know? But you can't do that. This is a big world. This is a big world. There's too many nice things happening in this world. You're a very pretty girl. Where you live? No. Disregard that. That's okay. That's the most important thing. I want to know you. I say I want to know you. Ooh, that's groovy, ain't it? I'll play the blues for you. I ain't got no big name. Oh Lord, and I ain't no big star. I'll play the blues for you on my guitar. Oh, your loneliness, I've tried to soothe.
That man over there say, a woman needs to be helped into carriages and lifted over ditches and to have the best place everywhere. Nobody ever helped me into carriages or over mud puddles or gives me a best place. And ain't I a woman? As a man, if I could get to it, and bear the lash as well. And ain't I a woman? I have borne 13 children and seen most all sold into slavery. And when I cried out a mother's grief, none but Jesus heard me. Ain't I a woman? That little man in black there say, a woman can't have as much rights as a man, 'cause Christ wasn't a woman. Where did your Christ come from? From God and a woman. Man had nothing to do with him. If the first woman God ever made was strong enough to turn the world upside down all alone, together, women ought to be able to turn it right side up again. Die Leben, Leidenschaften, Kämpfe und Erfolge von Sojourner Truth, Anaïs Nin, Hannah Arendt, Simone de Beauvoir, Ella Fitzgerald, Valerie Solanas, Isabel Allende und Toni Morrison sind es, die ich mit Ihnen teilen möchte. Durch Tanz, Musik und ihre Geschichten, erzählt von den Frauen selbst und anderen. Frauen aus unterschiedlichen sozialen Schichten, Nationalitäten und Zeiten in der Geschichte oder ihre Geschichten mit variierenden Interessen und Einflüssen auf die Gesellschaft und Zeiten, in denen sie lebten, arbeiteten und produzierten. Frauen aus Deutschland, Frankreich, den USA und Chile. Alle tragen in ihrer Einzigartigkeit zur Menschheit bei. Ich möchte meine Erfahrungen mit den Frauen für Sie sichtbar und fühlbar machen. Beginnend mit Sojourner Truth. Eigentlich Isabella von Wagner wurde ca. 1797 in Ulster County, New York, geboren. Sojourner Truth war eine schwarze Reformerin und Predigerin, die ihre religiösen Überzeugungen der Sklavenbefreiung und Frauenrechtsbewegung im 19. Jahrhundert widmete. Sie wurde in die Sklaverei hineingeboren und gehörte einem wohlhabenden New Yorker Landbesitzer. Isabella verbrachte ihre Kindheit als missbrauchte Leibeigene mehrerer Herren. Das folgende Gedicht wurde von Sojourner Truth während der Frauenrechtstagung in Akron, Ohio, 1852 präsentiert. Ich habe es bereits auf Englisch vorgetragen. Und bin ich keine Frau? Der Mann dort drüben sagt, einer Frau soll man in den Wagen helfen und über Gräben heben. Und sie sollte überall den besten Platz bekommen. Niemand half mir jemals in den Wagen oder über Schlammpfützen oder gibt mir einen besten Platz. Und bin ich keine Frau? Sieh mich an, sieh meinen Arm. Ich habe gepflügt und gepflanzt und in die Scheune getragen. Und kein Mann konnte es besser als ich. Und bin ich keine Frau? Ich konnte so viel arbeiten und so viel essen wie ein Mann, wenn etwas für mich da war. Und ich ertrug auch die Peitschenhiebe. Und bin ich keine Frau? Ich habe 13 Kinder geboren und sah die meisten in die Sklaverei verkauft. Und als ich den mütterlichen Schmerz herausweinte, hörte mich keiner außer Jesus. Und bin ich keine Frau? Der kleine Mann in Schwarz dort sagt, eine Frau kann nicht so viele Rechte haben wie ein Mann, weil Christus keine Frau war. Wo kam euer Christus her? Von Gott und einer Frau. Ein Mann hat damit nichts zu tun. Wenn die erste Frau, die Gott jemals schuf, stark genug war, die Welt auf den Kopf zu stellen, ganz allein, sollten die Frauen zusammen in der Lage sein, sie wieder aufrecht zu stellen. Von 1810 bis 1827 bekam Sojourner Truth mindestens 5 Kinder, zusammen mit einem Sklaven namens Thomas, mit dem sie verheiratet war. Kurz bevor man in New York 1827 die Sklaverei abschaffte, wurde sie an Isaac van Wagner verkauft, der ihr die Freiheit gab. Im Gegenzug nahm sie den Familiennamen an. Ihre erste Tat in Freiheit war das Führen eines Gerichtskampfes, bei dem sie ihren jüngsten Sohn zurückgewann, der illegal in den Süden verkauft worden war. Ungefähr 1829 ging sie mit ihren 2 jüngsten Kindern nach New York City und arbeitete dort als Hausangestellte. Obwohl sie niemals schreiben und lesen lernte, hatte sie seit ihrer Kindheit Visionen und hörte Stimmen, welche sie auf Gott zurückführte. In New York City trat Isabella mit Elia Pearson in Verbindung, einem engagierten religiösen Missionar. Auf der Straße, arbeitend und predigend, schloss sie sich seiner Gesellschaft für Erneuerung an und zog in sein Haus. 1843 verließ sie New York City und nannte sich von dort an Sojourner Truth. Sie folgte einem übernatürlichen Ruf, to travel up and down the land, und begann ihre Reise, auf der sie bei öffentlichen Treffen, in Kirchen und auf Dorfstraßen sang und predigte und ihren Zuhörern mit Nachdruck empfahl, die biblische Botschaft von Gottes Güte und der Bruderschaft der Menschheit zu akzeptieren. Im selben Jahr wurde sie mit der Bewegung zur Abschaffung der Sklaverei in der Utopian Community in Northampton, Massachusetts bekannt und sprach darauf im Namen dieser Bewegung im gesamten Staat. 1850 ging sie nach Westen, wo ihr Ruf als magnetisierende Persönlichkeit bekannt war und große Menschenmengen anzog. Sie finanzierte sich durch den Verkauf von Die Geschichte der Sojourner Truth, welche sie Oliver Gilbert diktiert hatte, mit einem Vorwort des Leiters der Bewegung zur Abschaffung der Sklaverei William Lloyd Garrison und später des Autors Harriet Beecher Stowe. Mit der Frauenrechtsbewegung Anfang 1850 in Kontakt kommend und durch andere führende Frauen ermutigt, nahm Sojourner Truth an Zusammenkünften zum Wahlrecht für den Rest ihres Lebens teil. 1850 ließ sie sich in Battle Creek, Michigan, nieder. Zu Beginn des Bürgerkriegs sammelte sie Vorräte für das Schwarze Freiwilligenregiment und 1864 ging sie nach Washington, D.C., wo sie bei der Integration der Straßenbahn half und vom Präsidenten Abraham Lincoln im Weißen Haus empfangen wurde. Im selben Jahr nahm sie eine Einladung der National Freedmen's Relief Association an, bei der sie die Beratung von Exsklaven übernahm, im Besonderen bei Angelegenheiten der Niederlassung. 1870 unterstützte sie eine große Migration von sich in Freiheit befindenden Exsklaven nach Kansas und Missouri. In ihren letzten Jahren hielt sie Vorträge im gesamten Norden. Sojourner Truth starb am 26. November 1883 in Battle Creek, Michigan. Nun möchte ich aus dem Buch Unsung Heroes von E.R. Haynes vorlesen. Es wurde 1921 veröffentlicht. Ich glaube, dass diese Passagen Ihnen einen Einblick in Sojourner Truths Erfahrungen geben werden, die Einfluss hatten bei der Formung ihres Charakters hinsichtlich späterer Unternehmungen in ihrem Leben. Among Isabella's earliest recollections was a picture of her father and mother sitting night after night in their damp cellar, lighted by a blazing pine nut, talking over their experiences of bygone days. Occasionally, they would refer to one snowy morning when an old-fashioned sleigh drove up to their door and took away their unsuspecting little boy, Michael, and their little girl, Nancy, locked in a sleigh box. Whenever this story was mentioned, Isabella seemed to fall into a deep study. However, she was left to remain in Ulster County, New York, her birthplace, until her mother and father died. She was then sold to a man whose wife scolded and frowned at her creeping gait, her dull understanding, and slovenly ways. In spite of his wife's impatience, the man insisted that Isabella could do as much work as half a dozen common people and do it well. Isabella, therefore, fond of trying to please her new master, often worked several nights in succession, taking only short naps as she sat in her chair. Some nights, fearing that if she sat down she would sleep too long, she took only cat naps while she rested against the kitchen wall. One morning, the potatoes which Isabella had cooked for breakfast seemed unusually dingy and dirty. "Look," said Isabella's mistress to her husband, "a fine specimen of Bear's work. It is the way all her work is done." Isabella's master scolded her and bade her to be more careful in the future. The two white servant girls in the family also abused Isabella for preparing such food. Isabella moped around, apparently wondering why the potatoes looked so dingy and dirty. As she stood wondering how to avoid this the next time, Gertrude, her mistress' little daughter, stole quietly up behind her. Said she, catching Isabella by the arm, "Belle, if you will wake me early tomorrow morning, I will get up and attend to your potatoes while you go out to milk the cows. Then father and mother and all of them will not be scolding you." Isabella bowed, thanked her, and promised to wake her early. Then off Gertrude ran. The next morning, just as the potatoes began to boil and milking time came, little Gertrude walked into the kitchen and seated herself in the corner by the fire. She opened her little sewing basket and busied herself with making something for her doll. As she sat there, one of the maids came in with a broom in her hand and ordered her out. But Gertrude refused to go. The maid began to sweep hurriedly. When she reached the fireplace, she pretended to be in such a hurry, she caught up a handful of ashes and quickly dashed them into the potatoes. Gertrude ran out of the kitchen saying, oh, Papi, the girl has been putting ashes into Belle's potatoes. I saw her do it. Look at those that fell on the outside of the kettle." She ran about the house and yard, telling her story to everyone. Her father listened to her story, called the maid in and, brandishing his fist at her, gave her orders to let Belle alone.